and into the federal government's response to the Chinese Communist Party's use of a strategy known as political warfare. The CCP employs this strategy to infiltrate and influence communities and critical sectors across the nation. The CCP's ultimate goal is to weaken and destroy its main enemy, which the party has identified as America. The committee has conducted oversight of 25 sectors of the federal government to understand if a whole-of-government approach to the CCP threat is sufficient or even in existence. Consulting with experts from the U.S. government, military, and private sector, and holding briefings with 23 federal agencies, the committee has found that the CCP is waging a war without weapons against America. And the Biden-Harris administration has no government-wide strategy to combat CCP warfare. By any reasonable analysis, the United States faces a new Cold War, but right now, only its opponent, the CCP, is committed to winning it. Unlike the first Cold War, the adversary is already within, having entrenched itself within U.S. borders, institutions, businesses, universities, and culture centers. By capturing the elites and influential circles. Simply put, too many federal agencies have failed to understand, acknowledge, and combat CCP's political warfare. Sometimes this is because the agencies themselves have succumbed to CCP influence operations seeking to reshape U.S. decision-making to the party's benefit.
You know, James Comer loves to come after people he disagrees with, in spite of it never working out for him. But now he's not only looking at the Chinese Communist Party, he's looking at Tim Walz.
It's troubling that you could potentially have a vice president of the United States who has such a fond place in his heart for the communist country that he should be actually very concerned about.
As you all know, China steals our intellectual property. They steal our patents. They fund disinformation campaigns. They try to divide our democratic government. They do everything they can to harm everyday Americans.
Comer is very concerned about Tim Walz's ties to China. When he graduated college, he went there to teach, and he's gone back several times. Now, this concerns Comer, who apparently thinks all there is to do in China is share USA political secrets. However, he didn't seem to mind, remember, when another politician cozied up to China.
He loves them because he envies their total control over their societies, and they love him because they know they can manipulate and control him. He praises all of them: Putin, Orban, Xi, Kim Jong-un. Trump exults in their friendship and emulates their control over what he calls their people. When he was president, Trump said that he and Xi, the president of China and chairman of the Communist Party, quote, love each other. And Trump called Xi a brilliant man. He openly envied and marveled over Xi's total control over his people, saying, quote, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. And when people asked questions about Xi and the CCP's role at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, Trump repeatedly defended Xi and praised his excellent leadership, calling him a brilliant man, smart, brilliant, everything perfect. We love each other. President Xi, who's a friend of mine, who's very smart, very good man, nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. My feeling toward you is an incredibly warm one.
You know, this feels like it's going outside of having good relationships with foreign nations and turning into something much more nefarious. I mean, isn't this something we should be more concerned about than Walz's trips to China?
All the dictators and despots of the world have something in common in 2024. They're united in trying to subvert democracy in America, and they're engaged indeed in political warfare against us, as the title of this hearing has it. The vicious autocrats of Russia, the police state theocrats of Iran, the totalitarian communist billionaire bureaucrats of China and North Korea, and all their corrupt oligarchs and plutocrats seek to destroy the very idea of human rights and political freedom that are the defining ideals of America, and still the hope of a world struggling against their oppression. The tyrants have something else in common: Donald Trump. He loves them all, and they love him back. Trump's repeatedly praised Russia's lawless and bloody invasion of Ukraine as smart. At a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser in 2022, he gushed that Putin was taking over a country, a vast, vast location, a great piece of land with a lot of people, and just walking right in. At the presidential debate earlier this month, he refused to say that he wanted Ukraine to win the war, but said he would end the war in 24 hours, meaning he would, per usual, cave in to Putin's propaganda and outrageous demands and cede large parts of Ukraine to the Russian strongman who imprisons, poisons, and murders his political opponents. Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, described his own boss as, quote, a person who admires autocrats and murderous dictators, a person that has nothing but contempt for our democratic institutions, our Constitution, and the rule of law. And to quote Trump's chilling 2018 comments to Fox News about Kim Jong-un, Trump said, he's the head of a country, and I mean he's the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different. He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same. Trump openly catered to Putin, defended the former KGB chief, and aggressively took his side against the NSA, the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the FBI, and more than a dozen other U.S. intelligence agencies, which found that Putin was engaged in active political espionage, sabotage, and interference in the 2016 American presidential election, a form of shocking appeasement that just invited further Russian aggression against us.
I'm here with my constituent, Dr. Lauren McGee, who will be my guest this evening to the joint session of Congress to dramatize the terrible repercussions of Elon Musk and Doge's attack on the federal workforce. Let me back up and tell people what you do, because what you do is so significant and important within your field, but it's kind of emblematic of what's going on across the government, where we see thousands and thousands of people losing jobs doing really important stuff for the American people. Now, your field is within cancer, and you're a biologist, and your field is that of juvenile osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer that affects, you told me, around 1,000 kids a year. Is that right? But you've had some major breakthroughs by looking at comparable cancers that have affected dogs.
I did my PhD in Grand Rapids, Michigan, working on a different kind of sarcoma that's also equally rare and affects children. And so when I really enjoyed the aspect of rare pediatric cancers and the impact that we could have on that type of a cancer through the NIH. It's one of the biggest funding sources for pediatric cancers, because they're all rare, so they're really hard to run clinical trials on. So I found an opening for this position that does comparative oncology, where we can use some of these similarities between dogs and people to run clinical trials through, like, a family dog that develops osteosarcoma naturally. They really do reflect what happens in children who develop osteosarcoma, just at a much higher incidence rate. And so we are able to use those similarities and commonalities to look for signatures, treatment options in dogs that can be used in humans.
For the families of people, the children who get these diseases, it's absolutely essential. So they randomly, arbitrarily decide to sack the biologist who's head of the team. This is a story that we are hearing throughout NIH, throughout the Food and Drug Administration, throughout NOAA and the National Weather Service. People are being sacked left and right on a completely arbitrary basis. I want to thank Dr. McGee for standing strong. I know you're not in politics. That's not your field. You should be doing the research that you're doing that's so critical on pediatric osteosarcoma, making progress for the thousands of families in America whose lives are so affected by that. But thank you for stepping up, because it's going to take everybody stepping up to defend our democracy against this authoritarian onslaught.